Another soldier of the invading Russian army has surrendered to Ukrainian soldiers. The Russian soldier, who was targeted by a drone, indicated his willingness to surrender. The soldier took off his clothes to show that he had no weapons or explosives on him, and crawled towards the trench where the Ukrainian soldiers were. Upon reaching the trench, the Russian soldier was met by Ukrainian fighters. When Russian soldiers, helpless in the face of Ukrainian drones, see no other way out, they indicate that they want to surrender to the drones and in this way surrender by walking towards the Ukrainian fighters' position.
Ukraine still makes full use of Soviet aircraft, but at the same time integrates them into modern warfare. Aviation expert Anatoly Krapchinsky told Obozrevatel about the difficulties they face in this regard. We still fight on Su-24, Su-27, MiG-29. This is aviation from the Cold War. But, thanks to the engineering school, which did not disappear, but transformed into war, these veterans became platforms for modern weapons, he noted. So Ukrainian Su-24s, Su-27s, MiG-29s crush Russian positions along the front line, and Russians see this. The expert explained that the Su-24, for example, was adapted from the British Storm Shadow and French Scalp cruise missiles, which changed the depth of the enemy's destruction. The MiG-29 and Su-27, according to him, received the ability to carry American high-precision JDAM-ER air bombs, and this is no longer just protection of the sky, but pinpoint strikes in the rear. Work is also continuing on the integration of anti-radar missiles, such as the AGM-88 HARM, weapons that eat away at enemy air defenses, open the sky to other means of destruction. Krapchinsky emphasized. At the same time, there are many problems along the way, the main one being resources, he said. In this case, keeping the park combat ready becomes an art. Soviet technology is not bad. When you have a limited number of engines, spare parts, and even fewer factories capable of servicing it, keeping the fleet combat ready becomes an art. Few people understand that sometimes one flight is half a day of work for engineers with an entire hangar of spare parts, the analyst emphasized. He stressed that using the legacy of the USSR, Ukraine is learning not to be nostalgic for it, but to integrate it into modern warfare. And this is perhaps the most difficult thing, to keep the old in order while gradually moving on to the new. He also explained how close Ukraine is to parity in the sky, emphasizing that parity is not a goal but a minimum from which an advantage begins. Parity in the sky is not just the number of fighters. It is a whole ensemble of means: aviation, air defense, electronic warfare systems, radar, and even kamikaze drones that destroy targets in the depths. Yes, getting F-16s, airborne early warning aircraft like the Saab 340, AEW and C, integrating modern aerial bombs and missiles, and all this will give us a significant boost, the expert says. But true parity, he says, comes not when you have a superplane Wunderwaffe, but when you see airspace as a system where each element covers its area of responsibility. Air defense covers the front and cities, aviation works on targets, and electronic warfare blocks the enemy. Parity is not a state, it is a process. We are not just approaching it, we are fighting for it every day in the conditions of the security that we have. Ukraine is forming a new model of war, and parity is not a goal, but a minimum from which an advantage begins, Krapchinsky emphasized. The fact that Russia deployed its very limited fleet of MiG-35 fighters for air defense over Moscow could be a sign of desperation, potentially pointing to a shortage of specialized air defense systems like the S-400 and Pantsir due to losses in Ukraine, writes Ruben Johnson, a former Pentagon consultant and foreign military affairs expert at the Kazimierz Pulaski Foundation in Warsaw, in his article for 1945. The MiG-35, which has previously struggled to secure export orders and has been produced in minimal quantities, may also be rapidly evaluated in this new defensive role, the publication says. The deployment is said to be the first known operational use of the MiG-35 in a defensive role near the Russian capital. The aircraft is not part of the regular Russian military inventory and was only built in small numbers. There has even been discussion in Moscow that it is a weapon system with no planned use. Moscow's military planners also never planned to use the aircraft in this war. So bringing it into service in this way raises numerous questions about whether Moscow has enough remaining air defense capabilities, Johnson said. The plane would never have been put into service if Russian forces had not been desperately looking for a way to counter the growing number of Ukrainian attack drones, a retired Russian aircraft designer said. According to the author, the MiG-35 was generally promoted as an export program. Some speculate that the inclusion of these fighters in the air defense role is also part of the aircraft's operational evaluation, as the MiG-35 remains a largely untested commodity. Overall, it appears that the use of MiG-35 fighters is the only option that Russia has left to strengthen defenses around the capital, the author stated. So another gap has appeared in Moscow's defense, and Ukraine has gained new opportunities for a strike. Let us recall, as defense observer Isaac Zeitz previously noted, the MiG-35 is a multi-role fighter developed by the Russian company Mikoyan, which is part of the United Aircraft Corporation in the Russian Federation. Despite its superiority over older models, such as the MiG-29, the fighter has failed to find its place in the international market, leaving experts doubtful about the future of the aircraft.